Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Longside podcast. And today we've got a lot to go through in terms of the match on Tuesday night, the 95th minute equaliser by Michael Obafemi. We're going to what do we think about that game and looking to the weekend with a big game against Luton away, and also on Tuesday night, a big game against Millwall away. For me, this is going to be where we can decide where we could be for the season in terms of, do we think that we can go on and maybe smash the 106 points record, or will we just be happy with, maybe first world problems, but maybe just winning a league title instead normally? Have to find out. We've got some great guests on the way here, so feel free. And I just want to say thank you all so much for the love on the podcast in recent weeks. We've got ourselves a great following on YouTube with, I think, over 400 brand new subscribers, and on the podcast on Spotify and Apple. You guys have been really enjoying it, so thank you all so much for the support on both platforms. So with that said, let's get both of the boys on board. So here we go. Boom. We've got Josh Nicholson and Tom Kilby on board for today's pod. Josh, how you doing, my friend?
I'm all right, thank you. How you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm doing fantastic. Yeah, as good as you could be being a Burnley fan in this day and age.
We're flying, Tom, absolutely flying.
Yeah, exactly. And Tom as well. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks, mate.
Well, let's get straight into it. So we had Watford at home on Tuesday night, and it was a game which had the opportunity to potentially break records and go on to break that 11 wins in a row, not only a club record, but also a league record since a rebranding since 2004. And it felt like it wasn't meant to be. It maybe, if you look at it, it felt maybe like a bad performance, but with hindsight, looking at the stats and comparing us to really any other team in the league, I mean, we actually played not that bad, really. I go to you, Josh, first. How do you look back on Tuesday night?
Well, I was there because I've got my season ticket in the Longside upper, and it was frustrating, really. It was, as you say, I think that's the right way to put it. It didn't feel like it was going to happen. I think when, after about 46 seconds, wasn't it? Barnsley had that chance and he hammered it, and the keeper sticks their fingertip up. A lot of the time, it goes over, goes in, and it's 1-0 after 46 seconds. And even from then, keeper gets fingertip on it, it loops up, doesn't loop into the net. On another day, it does, kind of thing. Second half, corner, head on, Teller hits it, hits the keeper, but it's a good spread from the keeper. So yeah, it was just one of them nights, but I actually felt all right. I felt like it was a better game than people are giving it sort of saying it was. I thought they were quite good tactically, really, against us. But you're never scared with this lot. We'll always find something, whether it was Twine's free kick or Davis Ogley against Rotherham. You felt something would happen, even if it had to be forced in by a shin off the post of someone's head by a Bailey Peacock-Farrell pushing people out of the way, So yeah, it felt all right. It felt slightly frustrating, but also really quite calming when it went in the 96th minute, I think.
Yeah, I do also think that with hindsight, when we compare our game and we look at what happened last night with Sheffield United and Middlesbrough, it kind of puts into perspective in terms of, like, even though we actually drew and dropped points for the first time in how long, we actually have gone further clear at the top, which is incredible timing. I can't lie. Tom, of course, I'll go to you next. People have talked a lot, especially about Jurich in the last couple of days, and I think it is completely fair to talk about him. And going into his error on Tuesday night, what do you think about the critique that he's received since?
To be honest, I think it's quite unfair. He performed excellent the game before. Everyone was singing his praises. I mean, I think a lot of people still hang on about the Nick Pope. So comparing those two is always going to be worlds apart. And Nick Pope, in my opinion, was Burnley's best keeper in the modern era. But his performance, I mean, it was a mistake. 9 times out of 10, you'd probably expect him to either just catch it or get rid of it. And it was just one of those mistakes. And there were still multiple chances after that for them to stop the goal. So he's quite unique in how he plays. I think everyone does get a little bit upset sometimes in the way that he plays, but it's what the manager wants. And that's the way that he plays. And I think you've just got to get behind him and back him. Apparently he was ill. according to Vincent. But again, where we are now, he is quite fundamental in how we play. So I think you've got to back him, give him a little bit of, reassurance and just help him, really.
And to go back to you on this as well, Tom, when we look back on the game, and of course we didn't break the record, but the way that I like to look at it, because I look back on what happened against Sheffield United, and I felt like that game was really huge to really ground us down and to highlight maybe some weaknesses. I think that going to that game and the way that we drew could actually benefit us more than if we just won it again. And I think it may give us a bit more of a kick up the arse, I guess, so to say, when we go to these two big games against Luton and Millwall.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, you can't take away Watford. I mean, they did their homework fully, and I think everyone kind of underestimated them. I think Burnley fans thought, we're going to break the record, and everyone got a little bit discomplacent. But at the end of the day, they did their job well, and that we did drop points. But again, I think there's more to learn still from this team. It's very young. I think everyone forgets how young they actually are. So there's lots of positives you can take from that draw. It wasn't a loss, but it was something that we can take going forward. And we have got some big games coming up. Luton is definitely one of, I think, going to be our toughest, even behind Watford. I think there's positives from that game we can definitely take go forward.
A lot has been said, maybe from people like me, which maybe isn't helping, about the potential 106-point record, of course, held by Reading. And I still believe that if we do go to both Millwall and Luton, that if we do somehow win both those games, I think that we could go on and win and crack that record. Josh, what's your expectations going into those two games?
I don't think you're wrong getting excited about that. I'll just start with that. I don't think it's wrong to be excited about that. I agree with everything Tom said. In terms of these games, I think he said it in his press conference earlier. I watched the press conference live, and he said it earlier. We're blessed with a lot of depth now. We brought in a Swedish international centre half and a Belgian under-21 who've both stepped in, and I was quite impressed with Alder Keel. So I'm still expecting us to go there and give us a really good account and come back with 4 or 6 points, because our attack, even from the bench, Twine came off the bench. I thought, actually, in the circumstances, as Tom said, that Watford did their own work. They knew what we were going to do. Twine managed to gather a little bit of calm and control off it again, and find the balls to feet again and to a claret shirt. I still believe in us. I still think, and I hope that doesn't come across as arrogant, I just think this team's brilliant. We have quality everywhere. If anybody follows me on Twitter, they know I'm a big Connor Roberts advocate. I'm seeing him flying up and down again. You can't not love it. You can't say that. I know Rob Edwards has gone over to Luton and they're really excited by it, but I can't see anything less than 4 or 6 points, to be honest, just by pure sort of force and weight of quality, to be honest with you.
On the back of that, what you're saying, I completely agree with what you said. Connor Roberts, I think, has reinvented himself under Vincent Kompany. And there's a few players, I mean, Johan as well has been instrumental in our season. And the way that they have, reinvented themselves. I mean, the way that Sean Dyche plays and used them was completely different to what they're being used for now. And I can only praise Vincent and then them guys as well for the way they've come back.
And there's a young man called Ashley Barnes who we did include in that. The Renaissance man, I called him on Tuesday when I was with my dad. I said, I was one of them that was absolutely hammering him. I was like, oh, for God's sake, he's done. And then I said to them at Christmas, it's pre-Blackburn game, I said, I just want to see him celebrate and go mad one last time, and then he can ride off on his horse into the sunset, and it's all good. But then for him to come back like this, I don't think anybody thought he would do that. So, I don't think a lot of teams have seen. It sounds ridiculous, and you mentioned the Dyche way of playing. I don't think many teams have seen the Kompany Barnes way of playing. I think they're still expecting Ashley Barnes to turn up and smash it to pieces. He's not doing that in a minute. Playing massive diagonals is not what teams are expecting of Ashley Barnes, is it? So I think it caught Norwich out a little bit. I genuinely do. So things like that,
My
make
favourite
me
thing.
quite confident.
at Norwich in the first half. He did that diagonal, and I was watching a Norwich vlogger. He was vlogging the game, and he was from the stands, of course, and he was recording that part when it happened. And when he hit the ball to do the diag to, I think, Zaruri, you can just hear some Norwich old old lass to say bloody hell. And I love that. I love that because. Yeah, the thing is, he is still Ashley Barnes. He is still smashing into people and being a nuisance, but he's got so much more about him and much more to his arsenal, which it does surprise people. That surprise element, I think that people are kind of like, Jesus Christ, what is this the same guy? And a young man called Ashley Barnes. He's 33 now, and he's learning new things each day. So you can't teach an old dog new tricks, apparently. One thing that I've not really spoken about too much in the last recent podcast is going really about Vincent Kompany and really going into what he's really brought us as a football club. And we've lauded a lot and justifiably about our players and what they've done on the pitch. But in terms of Vincent Kompany, I go to you first, Tom, about this. What is the sole most impressive thing that you find about Vincent Kompany?
Oh, it's a really good question. I think it's just his demeanour that he has. It's obvious that he plays on his experience as a player foremost. I think that Sean had that as well, but it was a different era in the way that they played, the Chesterfield. But I think Vincent, being a young manager, gets the people, gets them the young mindset. Like I said, we've got a youngest team we've ever had, really. And I think the way that he has a mindset of winners. I mean, we've all seen the clip of him when he was at in Belgium, and he was, having to go at them in the changing room, and that sort of gave an insight to how he actually, goes about his day-to-day business. And I think as well, his backroom staff has a lot to play in. I mean, I don't think backroom staff get enough get enough praise from the way only can go off Sean especially. But under Vincent Kompany, Craig Bellamy, they've all got Premier League experience. They've all got, man-to-man experience, and they just get it. I think that's the main thing. They get it. And obviously, I think Vincent can go back to his Pep days and use that sort of mentality. But again, I come back to it is that understanding, it's not just a rule book that everyone has to follow. It's a changing game. It's the modern way we all live in.
And I'll take that same question to you, Josh.
And I think I totally agree with Tom, to be honest with you. But I think you've mentioned there, I'll start with this, is that we mentioned the players. I think that's a Kompany thing. He's very, he's very good at going, oh, so-and-so was very good, or, so-and-so was very good, or, and he's come in and done really well, or I've been really impressed with him, and it's the attitude I love, the things about the community, the things about, I want it to be bums off seat. I want, again, I think the perfect words of it is understanding. You pay probably at the moment, the way everything is, you used to pay probably 100 quid on an away day, but now it's probably 150 quid to go and travel to wherever. And you saw the travelling fans we took to Norwich. We packed it out after having been to Ipswich the day before. In previous seasons, they would go to Bournemouth and then up to wherever, 1 week would at least be, half full and the other would be packed. So it's that getting the bums off seats and the attitude that, football isn't about, these lads on the pitch. It's about everyone. It's about the all. It's about the us. And I think that's what's most impressive about it is again, he's come in and he's just gone, right, lads, these people who don't have as much as you are working their absolute socks off to come and watch you. You better make them enjoy it. Do you know? And to me, that feels really special. It feels really, really special.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be too critical of the old board with Alan Pace. And that's why I kind of want to ask you this, Tom, because I don't really want to say it because I think it may annoy you. But of course, you are Barry Kilby's son. And if you know the club to a very intimate level, in depth behind the scenes, I would imagine. In terms of how you look at the club now and where we were originally perceived, in your perspective and your knowledge behind the club, what do you think is this, not the sole reason, because I'm sure it's very detailed, but what is the biggest change in the last 12 to 18 months that you think that you've seen?
I think new owners bring new ideas, fresh ideas. I mean, I think everyone was a little bit skeptical of the takeover, the whole background that the media that produce, I mean, we've all proved them wrong now, but you've got to give them credit where it's due. I think recruitment has been the biggest thing. I think we can all agree on our recruitment, not just locally or just in the UK, but Europe, even Brazil. We'd never thought we'd sign people from Brazil or something like that. So I think that is where my opinion is just worlds apart compared to, especially when my dad took over first of all in 2000s. There was hardly any recruitment. If you were, even under Sean Dyche, his early periods were all British born, because Burnley is a very difficult club to integrate into if you're not from the UK. That was the perception. But obviously, Vincent Kompany, Alan Pace, and the recruitment team have all shown that is not true now. That's not take away from Sean and what he did. I mean, I think we can all say he did a pretty good job, and with the players and the budget that he had. But I think today, the biggest thing I can say is the recruitment and the structure. I go back to what Josh said. It's the community sort of feel that Vincent buys into. You can feel it from in the ground, outside the ground, if you live nearby. Even if I live in London, and I can feel it down here with what people say down here. So I think the difference has to be a strong goal of where you're going, the backing from the board or the chairman, and having the right staff in the right place with recruitment. So I think that's the biggest difference.
That's very insightful, I can't lie, because I feel that as well, like even being in Poland, and that I think we've all kind of been there. If you've been to a place that maybe isn't in England, for example, like if I walk around in a Burnley shirt, let's say you go to Spain, Tenerife, wherever, right, and that some local finds you like, West Ham, Aston Villa. I think we've all been there. We've had that same feeling. I feel like people are really now becoming more understanding about who Burnley are, and that people know who Burnley are in Poland, for example, where where I live, and that just shows that the club is becoming so much more internationally recognizable, and not just by the signings, but the media team doing all these fancy transfer signing videos, which are great to witness, and to see other clubs kind of copy us and think, you know what, Burnley, they're actually kind of a cool club. I really like that. And even when I was a kid, imagine that other LED buzz, that would have been wow, no way. Growing up and go to turf, I used to love the Holland's Pie halftime show, and you shoot the green little balls into the middle of the pie. I love that. That was my childhood. Growing up, I always thought that's my dream. When I'm at an age, I can kick those green balls into that pie. I'm gutted that they got rid of it. I want them to bring it back. Tom, you got links. Can you sort us out?
I'll try my best, man. I'll try my best.
I'm sure you can find the original pie inflatable in the back room somewhere. Just send it to me.
I'll set one up in my back garden. You come do it there. It's fine.
I'll pay for the postage, man. Please. So to you, John, for you, Josh, for this one, because how old are you? May I ask, both of you two?
I'm 29. Oh, you're younger than me.
Look it.
So I'm 24. So there's not too much of a year gap between us three. In terms of your lifetime being a Burnley fan, how would you rank this feeling right now?
Oh, well, I've been going 26 years. So this year's my 26th year as a season ticket holder. I started in the Bob Lord and made my way over to the other side. And I'd probably say, by the year we had Stephen Defoe and we got into the Europa League, that season where we qualified, as in the one pre actually going to the tournament, I'd say this was probably second to me. I think, again, going back to what Tom said, I think we can't forget what the gaffer did. I think it's the house that Sean built that Kompany's renovating, to be honest with you. And
that's a good analogy. That's good.
And the lads leaving was sad. We were obviously sad about Tarks and Pope and whoever else. They were brilliant. But yeah, as somebody's just said, the speed he's got it to gel, is immense, and the lads he's brought in, they're all 23, 24, and your age, Liam, and you sit there and you think, I wish I was good at that age, do you know? And this is probably, I'd probably rank it, if we beat the record, it'll be better than the year we qualified to the Europa League, just with the circumstance of everyone absolutely wetting themselves about the money, the people leaving, Gaffer going, etc., etc. I think the fact that he's managed to get, it's now 20 players in or something, isn't it? And get them to such a standard that we probably could, compete in the bottom half of the Premier League. And this year is going to be such a good learning year for a lot of the young lads, that there's another year under their belt. They've been bashed about a bit. They've done a lot of running. You know, they've gone through a long old season that, you know, it's so exciting that next year could be a really, really good year with everything going on.
Oh yes, it's a special time and to be a Burnley fan. And Tom, I will fully do that same question, but also adding in, looking back and now with hindsight on the near decade that we had under Sean Dyche, how do you look back on that from, you know, now that the dust has settled and he's now finally moved on to a new club?
It's quite a tricky one. I think this season is definitely my top three. Can I put it at the top? I don't think I can, simply because we're almost expecting to win now. Now, that's a really bad thing to expect as a fan, and probably everyone that's watching will be saying, no, you can't be expecting to win every game. But unfortunately, that's just the way it's fallen. The team's so good in every area, basically, that you become, you know, disenchanted and you feel like you can win everything. I think the 09-10 season, the first time in the Premier League, for me, has to be the top. It's just the way it fell. You know, it was unexpected. And then the 13-14 season with Sean in his first season, that has to be top for me. The final day where we scored against Wigan, that will always be in my mind as one of the best games that I ever attended. But this season is definitely up there, and it gives everyone hope for the future. I think other teams as well that we're watching, you know, it used to be the Burnley method of, you know, you going up and then going down, going up and getting down, and getting the payments in. And I think now it is almost evolved again, where it is do the Burnley way, where you go back up and you have a solid base of a young team. I'll ask the question to both of you: being promoted, are you looking forward to it, or are you apprehensive in the way that we're going up?
I can't wait. Honestly, I genuinely can't, because I think we have a brand of football now that's sustainable in the Premier League slightly. I think I think that's partially what happened last year was. And I will never have a bad word said about Sean Dyche. I love him to pieces, but it got to a point where we were doing what we were doing and not reacting to other people. And football's give and take, isn't it? So it was really difficult. But I actually think going up this time, I'm really excited because, as I said, there's going to be a year into the lads' legs who are really young. We've got experienced heads who've been there already, 4 or 5 of them. We've got, you know, Josh Cullen will be fine in the Premier League. You know, he will be absolutely fine. And it's stuff like that. It's like you don't want to sit there expecting us to do well, because you're a bit like, this isn't normal. This isn't okay. But I actually think the football we're playing is kind of how modern football goes, because we do play with a bit of give and take, like we saw against Watford on Tuesday when they were coming at us pretty hard on the counter. We had to change it a little bit and sort it. But when we got going, first 20 minutes of the second half, it was just awesome. So I feel like we're a bit more flexible. So it'll be quite exciting to see us test ourselves against the sort of inverted commas better sides.
Oh yeah, it'd be a completely different experience, the Premier League next year, from what we're used to, and that's what I'm most looking forward to, is going to these games, home or away, and have a completely different mindset on how we're going to take the game. Before I move on to talking about the game this weekend, I kind of want to try and do a service to people who are watching that I feel like they will have a question because of, I guess, your relations, Tom, that I think I want to try and do that for them. People have maybe questioned that along the lines of the previous board let Sean Dyche down, with how it all kind of ended with him and why we went down. They looked at the likes of Mike Garlick and, you know, the board for potentially not investing into the squad. Of course, I think it was 1 year, it was in 1920 that we spent 900 grand, and that was on Dale Stephens and Will Norris. So what's your 2 cents into that statement?
I mean, you've got to look at it objectively. I mean, we were in a way we've never been before. We did have cash in that we never expected, especially under my knowledge of, you know, growing up and everything. I've been a supporter all my life. So the early years from the 2000s, we really had no cash. And then obviously get promoted the first time and the money does come in, but you still got to budget. The famous line my dad always said is, he'll never bet the ranch. So then when Mike and John B took over, it was a completely different. Again, the game's always evolving, always. And we'll never compete in the way that, you know, Man City, or even when nowadays, when you get your Bournemouths, you know, spending stupid amounts of money, Aston Villas, it all changes. I can't really comment on the way it finished because, you know, it was COVID, you know, all that sort of stuff, and the way that the takeover happened was dealt with mainly with the chairman, which was Mike Garlick. So I can't comment much on that because my dad was just a board member at that stage. But you got to give them credit up until that point of, they got us into Europe. I think a lot of people do forget that. They did struggle towards the end. And I don't think they will deny that. Even the markets were different. Again, the same sort of stuff Sean was saying in his press conferences. It was the same. That was the truth. The market was tough. We can't come in on the opening day at that stage and bid stupid amounts of money because people know that they can just bluff you until the end. So we always thought that the towards the end of the transfer market, when where people are wanting to go and when deals are done or being done, that where you stand. So at the start it can be quite tricky. Agent talk is massive, obviously, but the way we dealt back then, under my knowledge, is more that we could put ourselves in a situation where we could put a good deal out, and we were never big spenders. I think everyone will always say that, and there could always be ways you could spend more money, and hindsight's a great thing. General hindsight's never lost a battle, but I think we can all say we should have done more signings for sure. It was an aging squad, but then again, you look back, the players that we did bring in at the time, Chris Wood, what a deal he was, and he propelled our season. Andre Gray, again, those sorts of signings. And I think the way we had to do was find players that suited Sean and the team and bought into the ethos. You can't buy someone. Look at, for instance, I'm not saying it is, but Jelly Vossen, who came in and straight back out. That if they don't buy into the ethos, it can be detrimental to the team and the wage budget. So I hope that gives a little bit of an insight to how it was run.
I appreciate you answering that, and hopefully in the future we can get you and your father on as well, and I think that'd be a very good discussion. Let's move on to the weekend. On Saturday, of course, we saw Sheffield United lose last night, which, of course, they're our nearest rival in terms of looking at the title, and they I believe they also play, who was it away? A very tough team away from home this weekend, actually. Millwall, isn't it? Millwall away. So we play Millwall away, and we play Luton, they play Millwall away. It's going to be a very interesting weekend, I feel like. So going into it, are we both on the same kind of level of a draw's okay going into this?
Yeah. You want to win. I think you want to win, don't you? And from my side of things, I live in Wrexham. So with all the antics that went on with Billy Sharp and the FA Cup the other week, it's kind of, it does do a little bit of a smile to your face to see them get beat and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it'll be 3-3 again. I think it will. I think they'll get 3 and we'll get 3. No, I think they'll get 3 and we'll get 3 in terms of points. So I know. No, I don't think it'll be 3-3. I think it'll be 3-1 to us. But because I think, obviously, with everything, with the injuries and tiredness and stuff like that, we might have a couple of changes that will need to bed in for 20 minutes, all that sort of stuff. But the way Taylor Barnes and Zarori and Cullen, etc., are doing, anything could happen. We could have a Norwich all over again. But
they have it in them. That's the beauty of it. They have it in them. That's to completely go and smash them.
That's the thing. So I don't know what you think, Tom, but I think 3-1 us, and Sheffield will probably scrape out a 1-0 and get out of there unscathed as unscathed as possible. I think is what they'll try and do.
My view is more just we've got to match them no matter what.
Yeah.
As long as I think a draw is good at this stage. Yeah. I think injuries right now are really hampering us in the way that we have to set up a team. And I'm not taking away that the other players can't come in and fit the style. I mean, look recently, centre backs, forward, strike, you name it. They've all come in and they've fitted in. I'd like to say that we have the resources to, get at least 2 goals. But again, Luton are no pushovers. So I'm a little bit apprehensive. It could be an upset. And then it's that ever-ending feeling as a Burnley fan. I think everyone always say they're pessimistic, that it's always coming, that loss, So for me, I'll say, yeah, we'll win, but I'll be happy as long as we match Sheffield.
Yeah, I follow that same hymn sheet too. And in terms of the lineup for this weekend, the only kind of change that I think I would make into it is potentially I think we should bring back Jack Cork into midfield. I think we missed him against Watford and push Brownhill back into his usual 10 role. In terms of injuries, of course, Bayer will be out for at least 2-3 weeks. It's nothing too serious. So you'd be expecting Al Dakil and Ekdal at the back, who, I mean, talk about how good those two have been in such a short space of time. It's been incredible. But yeah, I think the same team. Other than I would like to see Court back in the team and Johan be making a move out for him. Other than that, any other changes?
I will see what happens with Muric's mysterious illness. I mean, and I'm joking. But you could tell his passing was off, so something was up, wasn't it? But other than that, I can't see any other changes. I mean, as I say, Twine looked good when he came on, but you can't replace a Goodmanson. So again, it's one of them beautiful situations, but horrible situations if you're an actual manager, that you might have to sit Johan down and go, look, we've got to push Brownie forward and get Corky back in. You've played 2 games on the trot and we need to look after you. Those are probably the 2 I'd be looking at, but I'm hoping they've just told Muric to go to bed with some painkillers for a couple of days, to be honest.
I completely agree. I mean, even when you look at Peacock Farrell, he's going the exact same. He stepped into a role that I think a few seasons ago, when everyone was questioning him under Pope and everyone, you didn't want him to come in. But now he's stepped up again and shown people that he can slot in. He played well when he came on, I thought. Yeah.
He's a solid goalie. So what? And I'm on the middle ground of Muric. I love him, but at the same time, I'm getting over Nick Pope very slowly. But I think, what Muric can't do with his hands on crosses, etc., and the commanding stuff, Bailey does very well. But the passing and stuff that Muric does as basically a centre half and a centre mid, Bailey can't do. So, you don't mind either way, really. We won 3-0 at Norwich with Bailey Peacock Farrell in net. It's not the end of the world. As you say, Tommy's come in and been superb.
I mean, there's been quite a few players this year that I feel like have played quite well, and I feel quite bad for them. Like, the best example for me is Charlie Taylor. Yeah. How is he a bench player in the Championship? For me, he's still a Premier League player. So to see him now being used as a sort of rotational backup left back / centre back now is just a great example of how good our depth is. Like, for example, Luke McAnally, who is our 6th ranked centre back, he's gone to Coventry, and from what I'm hearing from Cov fans, they think that he's Maldini. It just shows how good our depth is, that our 5th and 6th choice, like, we've got the best part of our team is our depth, and the fact that we've got such a variety of goal scorers. Like, for example, before Tuesday night, we went 9 games winning in a row in Championship, 24 goals scored, not a single goal from a striker. Yeah. That's obscene. It's obscene. Like, our last goal before that was Ashley Barnes Derby, right? So that's our greatest strength, that if one player's having an off game, it's okay. We'll sub on Teller. We'll sub on Benson. We'll sub on Foster. We'll sub on Vitinho, that for some reason only scores headers, even though he's a right back who's 5'9". Don't know how that makes any sense. He scored 3 goals, 3 headers. God knows what's happened there. And that's what is the difference between a great team and, a good team and a great team. And that's just why we are just so far ahead. And to kind of add to that, because yes, we've been amazing. In both of your opinions, how do you rank the quality of the Championship this year?
That's a good question.
I'll let you answer that one. You
start. Are we blowing our trumpet a bit too much by almost not sandbagging, but almost being like, obviously we are too good for a league that isn't usually at its usual decent level?
I think it actually comes back to the recruitment that we did and the way that they came back. I mean, I think that shows its testament that we feel like that and that we can say this. I think it is a good standard. I actually do think it is, because, I mean, you look at Blackburn, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm glad where they are right now, but back when they were flying. And, you can't take away teams like that doing really well. I mean, look at Middlesbrough, come from nowhere. Done very well under Michael Carrick. So I'll always attest. I love the Championship. I always will. Yeah, even more than the Premier League, just in my opinion, because any game is a toss-up. All right, it might be different for us this season, but I think it'll always be every game is contestable, and I think it is very much this season. You look at some results and you're like, wow, I really didn't expect that. So I think it's fair to say that it's a top standard, and it always will be. And I think it isn't easier this season than it has. It's just we are better recruited and run in some respects.
Yeah, the recruitment is the key part of that because, for example, people are online on Twitter saying, "Oh, look, they've just got a team that's too good for the league," and "Oh, they bought all these players that are too good." And I'm like, no one knew who Benson or Zaroury was. No one really knew how good Cullen was. No one knew how good. No one knew of Ekdal even his existence over than a month ago. None of us did. Like Zaroury wasn't really pulling up trees in Belgium. I think he was a rotational player for Charleroi. I think he scored 3 goals last year. And Benson, I think he had 4 goals and 7 assists for Standard Liège, which is still decent, but like you don't look at that. You don't look at the Belgian Pro League and think that's a tier which is better than Championship. And that was the kind of narrative that we were hearing in the summer of like, oh, you can't just bring in players from Belgium and you just can't keep on bringing in loans that are kids and expect to do one Championship. Or you can't expect Kompany to come to Championship with no experience of managing in England and expect to do well. And now apparently it's turned into, we bought the league and then we bought all these players that are clearly way too good for this division. I love how the narrative has changed. Josh, how have you enjoyed that transition?
That's just the madness. Like, I love the Championship as well because A, it was what we grew up with, really, wasn't it? Let's be honest. We made our way through the divisions, but B, I think you're right, as you're right to say, Tom. I think there's a lot of good sides and a lot of good football. I think for fans of those teams like Watford, Middlesbrough, etc., I think their pushes, if they'd have come pushing earlier, if they've got the right manager and the right setup, at the start of the season, it would have been a really, really interesting ride. And I think that recruitment is utterly nuts. Like, as you say, none of us knew who half these people were, and we knew who Taylor Harwood-Bellis was because, I think when the name Man City is attached to someone, you think, right, this is going to be relatively decent. But it's a bit different from, getting David May on a free or, bringing in Dean Marney and Dave Jones for, pittance or Scott Arfield on a free. I love Dean Marney. He is the GOAT. But
remember the Henry Lansbury transfer saga every single year. Oh, bloody hell.
Oh, honestly. And then he turned up at that bloke's house in a really bad hat. And we're probably quite glad we didn't sign him, to be fair. But no,
still do his favour for us.
I know. But he, honestly, it's so exciting. And we go back to the squad depth. The squad depth's there already, right? But so we've got the number of players we need. How exciting is it that this summer we can probably go out and cherry pick the positions we need in terms of we want a striker, we want a right back, we want a centre back for, hypothetically, Colin Roberts isn't going anywhere, by the way. Replacing, I'm chucking bottles everywhere. No, but we can effectively go out and go, okay, who do we want? We don't have to go, oh no, we need numbers. Like, we're just gonna have to do this. We can go out and go, there's someone somewhere deep in what Ashley Westwood used to call a cave going, like, I found this lad in the second division in Bundesliga 2. Let's go and have a look at him. And we send the cavalry in like they did it with Lau Foster. It's as much as they probably went on a scouting mission just to watch him with their eyes. They probably did that slightly intimidatory. They probably went over to just go like, we're not messing around. Like, we're coming to get him and you can't stop us, basically. And that, to me, is really exciting. We've never, ever, ever had that in our lives. We've been scrapping around, firing faxes at people.
Going into next summer, if you were to look at our team now, where would you seek as our main vital places to improve?
I think it's got to be.
It's tough because we're doing so well right now, but
I think I know everyone loves Josh Cullen. I agree with you and Jack Court, but Jack Court is very old.
He's old now. Yeah.
We've only got 5 midfielders really, not taking out forwards and defenders. We've only really got 5 midfielders, and is that enough for Premier League? I don't want to say it is, but I think it is. It's not enough. Sorry. So that's what I'd like to see. Centre backs again is always an issue. It always will be.
Yeah.
We brought 2 in, but have they got the Premier League experience? They fitted in well. Again, Championship. I don't think you can compare this team right now to where a Premier League team could be. We did well against Bournemouth, but again, FA Cup's different. I think that Now, there is a question about the goalkeeper. I mean, I want to say he is Premier League, but I just don't know.
No, I think I do. But you look at, again, name sort of Verbruggen was brought up again, wasn't it, recently?
Yeah.
You know, even if we brought in a lad like that, do we know, you know, do we go for a Premier League quality 27-year-old, or do we go and find a young lad again from somewhere? So it's definitely centre mid for me as well. I think he's a little bit. I love Cork's bits, but you know, he's 33, 34, and there's got to be lads running rings around him. The other spot I don't say is, again, I love Josh Brownhill. I think he's a great leader, but a proper number 10, proper nippy, really round number 10, whether that's Twine, whether that's someone else, you know, you need that little bit of spark in the Premier League. I think you can't be so industrious with your number 10 work.
I could agree to that. I think you could definitely have the conversation of, would you be surprised if Muric is not our number 1 next year? I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case, that it's someone else. I agree with the midfielder. Cork, love him to bits. I love his calmness in the midfield. But as we've seen this year, he can't do it week in, week out. In the Premier League, even though it's less games, it's debated to be much more intense. And then number 10 role, Brownhill, he's an interesting player because seems like he's good at a lot of things, but not particularly great at any, if that makes it. Maybe I'm being harsh to him. Like, we've not really spoken really much about Brownhill actually, like at all, in the last couple of weeks and months. So let's just have a little just talk about him. How do you see Josh Brownhill? Like, I always see him as he should be the kind of more roaming playmaker type in the two that we have, so Cork and Brownhill. But with how good Cullen is, he can't really play there. And I don't think Cullen and Brownhill work in the same way, because Cullen, I think, gets much more isolated at the back, and Brownhill just kind of goes forward and helps the attack, which I feel like it kind of finds. Like we saw it last week against the likes of Watford. We got caught out quite a lot of times in that first half, which I felt like Cork would have been there to really solidify that and stop that happening. So, yeah, just speak about Brownhill here. Where do you see him?
Go on, Josh.
Oh, mamma mia. I'd probably agree with you. He's probably that rover, but I actually do like him kind of sitting back and setting it up. And as you say, he's very similar to sort of Josh Cullen, and that's the difficulty, as he was to Ashley Westwood. You know, I was at Watford away like you were, Tom. Your dad asked me the immortal question, how do you think it's going to go today? As he asked everybody. I'm sure you'd given him a tour of Watford of some form before you'd see it. But I was there, and, you know, obviously we were playing a certain way at that point. But he was very similar to Ashley Westwood. So I think he is that roamer. He's got the legs to do it. And it's whether it's going to sound really, really hypercritical, because he is a brilliant player and a great leader. But is his first touch good enough to play that forward role? Is it close enough, tight enough? Does he get the ball off quick enough? He does for me, but does he in the Premier League? You know, that's where I think the questions were last year as well. Whether those questions will come back again in a different system, I don't know. But I think I probably agree with you that he's a good roamer and a good sort of classic centre back, which is why I think it's so difficult with him, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we had a lot of talks about Brownhill last year, and more particularly with, you know, who does he better suit with. And for the longest time, we had Brownhill and Westwood, which I felt like didn't really work, because I feel like they're both very similar players in how they play. And that Cork and Brownhill, I felt like was the best combo, or at least Cork and Westwood. So we had a lot of that last year. And this year, started off great, but over time, you kind of feel like his sort of star power kind of starts fading away as he kind of blurs much more into the kind of squad level of the team. And Tom, you're the one that brought him up first, so I'll let you carry on in terms of next year. Can you see him becoming much more of a bench player or a rotational player?
I think it's so harsh to say, because he's done so well for the club that he came in for. I will agree with you. He's a jack of all trades. He is good at what he does. But I don't think he will be a bencher. I mean, I loved Ashley Westwood. I would have loved to see him in this team. I thought
I agree.
I really think he
He's
could have
one of
done
them,
a really good job for us. Unfortunately, it's now it goes. The new manager wants to get rid. That's fine, fair enough. You can't keep someone on the bench if they still want to play. Is he a bench player? I don't think he is. And if he becomes that and he wants to leave, I think you've got to say fair enough. You have the right, because he has. I think he does have the first touch. I think he does have it. I think he does have the quality. Yeah. I just feel that at this moment in time, everyone else is just as good. That's the problem. You can't play everybody all the time. And I think he's just coming with the firing line, because I think he's a really good player, and I feel sorry for him in a lot of respects. But again, like you said, he's a great leader as well. So there's all these sort of emotions that come into it. You take it out of perspective, and I think that he needs to push himself on for sure. If he really wants to step up and be a real leader in the club, he already is. But can he go the extra mile now when it is easier? I think you could say in a good team it is easier, but when the times come tough next season, because they will come, can he step up to the plate and propel us forward?
Yeah, and also one bit to add to that, because you said about his leadership. If Cork is probably not going to be starting next year, well, Brownhill will now be our club captain.
Yeah,
because right now he's vice captain, but Cork, if Kompany sees him to not be a regular starter, surely it will lead down to Brownhill now. So would that guarantee him to start each game? Again, I have no issue with him starting each game next year in the Premier League. Well, we like to think Premier League anyway. I think that is a conversation to have. And one final thing before we get into the kind of predictions and rounding this off, the striker. We've seen a bit of Lyle Foster. We've seen very minimal of Obafemi. Of course, we've got Jay Rodriguez, who, for whatever reason, I don't think he's done particularly too bad in terms of dropping deep, but Barnes is doing really well recently. Yeah. We've got 4 strikers right now for next season. Do you see one of them being our main number 9, or can you see us going again in the market?
I can see us phasing Jay out, which is really, really sad to say, because I love him. I think the way he plays, we're of an age where we saw him come through as well. And I mean, what a player he's been, to be fair. If he didn't have his knee injury, I know it's very old man down the pub, but if he didn't have his knee injury, he'd have flown to a top 6 club. There's no way he wouldn't be playing, or have played up there. So I think his body's slowly catching up with him, which is really, really sad, because I don't want it to, because he's been brilliant for us this year again. But I can see what they're doing with Foster. I can see what they're doing, and I can see it being between Barnes and Foster.
What do you make of Foster so far?
I actually think he's doing all right. You look at him, and it's another cliche, but a lot of people say, and a lot of coaches say, he's getting in the right position, and he is. So, like on Saturday, when against Ipswich, he did for Teller's goal, and obviously the defenders, there was 3 of them, so he skewed it sideways and Teller finished it. There was Tuesday, the goal that actually went in. It was a really awkward header to try and get, and he got it onto the post at least, and then was probably going to swing his left leg, but Obafemi was in a better position, was standing up. There's a few examples of that. I think when he had, like they're saying, once he's had a month or 2, sort of getting used to the physicality and getting, 6'4" blokes kneeing you in the coccyx, and stuff like that. Like, I think he'll be brilliant. I think he just needs a goal as well. So I think, and I can see Barnsley getting a year contract extension, year or couple, just A, for that experience, and B, just the way he's played it so far this year. If he can carry on, his body's okay. I don't think any of the boys want Weghorst back. I mean, as a footballer, you'd have him back.
God, I forgot
as a human being, and
he's starting a new camp tonight. How is a Burnley loan player ending up playing at a new camp for Manchester United? It's crazy. It's just
bizarre how it happened, isn't it? But I mean, unless he can sit down with Kompany and convince Kompany, who you can tell he's no fool really. He doesn't suffer fools, does he? Unless he can convince Kompany he actually wants to play football for Burnley Football Club and not Wout Weghorst, he won't be anywhere near the club, I don't think. But I think we will go and look for a striker. I actually think we'll go and look for an out-and-out sort of, someone who can do everyone. But if we get priced out of one, like that Georgian lad who was mentioned last year,
from FC Metz.
Yeah, so if there was someone like that available, I'm sure they'd go after him, because I think they do just work on, if there's someone really good available and he fits in a slot, then we'll have him. But I don't think it's a desperate need. I think they'll go looking, but if they get priced out, they won't panic.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've been impressed by our transfer recruitment, that we seem like we're quite calm in terms of if it's a player that I feel like we're being priced out and they just have a ridiculous asking price, then we're just kind of like, no. I think for Bruggen was similar to that they wanted like 4 mil for him, and it's like, that's just not worth it. Lyle Foster, I think, is the only outlier in terms of like, that seems a bit too much to what he's really shown for, and we just got to take the opinion of Vincent Kompany that he knows what he's doing. Tom, again, in terms of what do you expect our number 9 situation next year, and I guess your opinion on Vizeh, because I completely forgot about him as well.
I'll start with the number 9 question. I think, again, I'll come back to the J. I mean, he did so well for us during the season, and up until Barnsley came in, he was quite instrumental in our team. I think it's quite harsh for any of his critics out there now saying that, you know, he needs to move on, he's too old or whatever. I think that's not fair. Again, it comes to the point next season, if he does want to stay, does he get game time? And then ultimately, at his age, you know, you'll probably want to get game time. And if the move comes at the time where he wants the time, then fair enough. There's, you know, childhood heroes, you just said, Josh. And growing up with him, he's come back and he's done exceptionally well. And Ashley Barnes has surprised us all in the way that he come back and again taught himself a new game basically under Vincent Kompany. Foster, I've seen limited time. I've been able to see him live yet, but from what I saw recently, I think it's there. I mean, listen, transfer window only closed 16 days ago. Yeah. You know, these people that have come in, you're not going to expect them to come in on fire and change the league and even change the way we play. Understand it. Moving abroad, for starters, is a completely different lifestyle. Obviously, you would understand, Leah. It's something that you've got to accept and come to terms with, even the language barrier. So I'm not. I know he's not. He can speak English, but that sort of stuff plays on people's minds, the family and everything like that. So I wasn't expecting him to come in on fire and change the way we play. But again, he is one for the future. I think he has real attributes of a team player, just a striker, but a confident striker as well. And Obafemi as well. He took it well. He didn't come in at a good angle, the goal, and he took it well. And I think we've recruited well yet again. That we can say that we have a multiple options of strikers that we can rely on.
Really? Wait, many options at Burnley Football Club? You serious? We got options? I mean, Christ, I think for like 3 years in Premier League, I think our only options the entire time was Matej Vizeh and maybe an Aaron Lennon.
He didn't even play Matej Vizeh anyway.
He refused to play him for no apparent reason.
I feel gutted about Matej Vizeh. I think he would be quite good in this team if he didn't have the ACL. So it's quite unfortunate with him. Let's crack onto the weekend then. So we've got Luton, of course. And the reason why I tie to this Judgement week is because I feel like because of our 2 games in a row and also with Sheffield United, I feel like because of how they're both placed, this could be a big, big tell in terms of where we go and just kind of walk onto the title or not. Because we've got, of course, Luton and Millwall away, and Sheffield United, they've got, of course, Millwall and Watford at home. And then we both got our FA Cup games, very different. We have got, of course, Fleetwood at home. And we can maybe speak about FA Cup and our Wembley trip, of course. And then they've got Spurs at home in the FA Cup, right? So in terms of, I mean, do you expect Sheffield United to have a bit of a wobble now? Just out of curiosity, after what's happened against Borough?
Depends how tired they are. I think. I haven't watched the highlights or anything, but I don't know how bruising a game it was.
Do you rate them as actually like a good score, like on our level as well?
Well, they're just completely different. They're probably an antithesis of us, aren't they? Like
they're basically Burnley of what we are used to.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's the thing. Is probably why we rate them a little bit, because we know what they're doing. But whether Wednesday bruised them enough to go and, you know, lose again or draw again on Saturday, I don't know. But they just seem to keep churning. They're like us, they just kind of keep churning. Whatever happens, they'll churn, which is frustrating.
Yeah.
But
And Nick can say the same thing for us as well. I think we're probably the most frustrated team in the league.
Yeah.
For anyone, so it's understandable.
Yeah, but I can see them drawing 2 or 3 in a row. I can't see them losing 2 or 3 in a row at any point. Like Tom says, we've just got to match them, and I think that's going to be the important bit. I don't expect them to have a wobble, but even if we've got injuries or tiredness, or like we've had illness in the camp and whatever else, we've just got to find a way to match people, and that'll be enough, I think.
Yeah, and we've shown now that even when we don't play that well, we still get a result. So, Tom, I'll go to you for that one.
I would bold and say we are better than Sheffield United. I think we are this season. I won't sit on the fence. I think that we are. And I go back to recruitment. The way that we recruited is been more diverse, I think. And again, it comes back to how many goal scorers we've got. I mean, they've got a few exceptionally good players for the league, and I think that is their biggest attribute. Whereas we have many people who can score literally, and we can defend very well. So I will say that we are better than Sheffield United at this moment in time.
Yeah, and to be fair, that's a good point, because all our goals have come in weird shapes and sizes, haven't they? Yeah. They've not all been free kicks or corners. They've not all been lumping it forward and hitting someone. They've not all been passed into the net. They've all been completely different. Whereas you watched their goal last night, and it's an absolutely rocket launched throw. It's rocket launched in. And you compare that to Middlesbrough's goals that were actually quite nice to watch, to be fair. I don't want to say it, but they were quite nice to watch. Yeah, well, you put it like that, so we probably.
I think it'd be interesting. I think Middlesbrough could catch Sheffield United. The way they played, the form, and like I said, I watched the goals last night. Middlesbrough just looked better in the way that they built up play and then scored themselves. So I don't know. It could be interesting. I may be completely wrong. I don't know. But I don't know. You could watch out for that. It could be interesting.
Oh, yeah. They looked exceptional, and it makes it great for not just us, as it benefits us as well, but for just entertainment in the league. You want to see a fight for the automatics at the very least, and it looks like that is shaping up, that hopefully Borough can put some pressure onto them, and it means that if they slip up, we can, of course, just go on the beach, essentially. That's why I got my Hawaii little necklace ring thing over there ready to go. That I think if he beats both Millwall and Luton, I'm wearing that for the rest of the season. We're on the beach, lads. That's kind of my thoughts on it. So let's go into predictions. Luton away. I want your scoreline and goal scorer. So I'll go to you, Josh, first.
Right, I'm going 3-1. I'm going Ashley Barnes, because he hasn't scored in ages and he's getting closer. I'm going Zarori, because he's not scored in a couple, and I'm going to go absolutely rogue and say Al-Dakhil if he plays from a corner.
I
wasn't going to say it. Was too obvious. That was too obvious, lads. So they'd be my 3, and I think we'll go 1-0 down, and then we'll click into gear and absolutely thump them.
Tom?
I think it'll be a lot closer than people believe. I think they're a good team. I can't take away the way they play. I actually quite like the style they play. So I'm going to go 1-0 Teller. 25 minutes. There you go.
Even the minute. Jeez. The thing is, I like Luton just because they kind of remind me of what we were like when we were back in 13, 14, for example, or 08 or 09. That no one really thought that we would be going up. We weren't really the pretty team, and we were up against the odds for the most part. And Luton very much are. Not just that they came from like the National League years ago, but also their finances is nowhere in comparison to West Brom or to Sunderland or to Norwich, etc. Right. So I do like them for that reason alone. So, right. I don't know why. I want to be fair and say a draw, like a 1-1 draw, just because if we actually do draw, it doesn't hurt me in the same way mentally and emotionally, right? So I don't know. If I would say we're going to win, I think it'd be a 1-0 win and Barnes will score. For me, this feels like the perfect Barnes game. Yeah. It just feels like the perfect Barnes game. So I want to say 1-0 Burnley win. Screw it, I'm sticking 1-0 Burnley win. Okay, I'm going to change it. There you go. 1-0 Burnley, Barnes to score, and hopefully he can get incredible scenes and celebrations to the way end, which would be fantastic to see. For all the guests that we have on for the podcast, I ask like at Burnley, related kind of nostalgic question to end it off. So to both of you, the question for today, we have got, what is your all-time Burnley goal? So 1 for the kind of technical brilliance of it, and 2 for the celebrations, the meaning of it, however you decide. So I will go to, you both look well and thought. So I'll say Tom first. So 1 for the kind of technical brilliance of it.
One
and then
comes
2
straight to
for
mind for technical, and I will say Joey Bon away at, it was the free kick. I can't remember where it was.
Brentford.
That free kick, I would just chipped it in. It was unbelievable. And the scenes were incredible. And then celebration-wise, I can't look past Charlton on when we got promoted at their place. I think it was Sam Vokes, and everyone just went mad. And that will be my all-time favourite game that I've attended. So I think that one for the scenes.
Yeah.
Nice one. You spoke about it, that Brentford game. I think that could be the best half of football I've ever seen. Burnley. Like 3-0 at half time, and all 3 goals from that Arfield goal. Though I think it was the first one that was so good. And then George Boyd as well, cutting across. Yeah. That was an incredible half of football. Josh?
I think in terms of absolute scenes and limbs, I'd probably go Watford away last year. I know it didn't end well for us after that. That second goal was honestly, I went down on my own, and being away and just random people hugging me, all sorts, just going wild for about literally half an hour. I nearly missed my lift home because I was too busy singing the Michael Jackson song. I felt like, we're coming back together a bit here. The fans are coming back together because there's been so much division over Dyche leaving. There's been so much division of the money stuff because TalkSport winded it up and stuff, Yeah. But that game kind of epitomised us as a club. I think at that end that we all just had a release. And I think in terms of technical brilliance, there's only one man for the job. And it's either Robbie against Blackburn in the Premier League after about 30 seconds where he volleyed it from about 30 yards out. I was like, I've never seen anything like this in my life. And or the free kick he scored against Tottenham, where I don't know who the keeper was.
The semi-final.
Yeah, he stood on the wrong side of the net, so Robbie went, all right, then I'll put it down and just put it there. And I was like, how have you done that? Or it's like Twine's free kick against West Brom. That's another one that's probably up there for me. We were looking at it like, lad's not played all year. He's been injured. He's in a new place. There's all sorts of rumours about him and all sorts of this, that, and the other. He steps up, 85th minute, and he just goes, here you go, lads, I'll shove it in the top corner. And you're like, how the hell have you done that? How have you done that, son? Yeah. So, probably one of those 2 free kicks for me.
I like the shout of the rugby play just because it reminds me of that night, and I think that's one of the best games I've seen in terms of a performance from Robbie. Like, he completely turned that into his own that night. I mean, technically for me, it's not really. It's technically, but also I don't think I will ever see a goal like that. Is Pato against Reading in the semi-final? I've never seen a ball float like that. So for me, that's technically. And in terms of scenes, I guess in terms of my from my pure memory, like I can't really remember too much of. I was there in the semi-final, and I was there at Wembley, but I don't remember it that well because I was like 10 at the time. So in terms of memory, Borough, Michael Keane in the 94th minute or so, and people have they've made comparisons from that night to what happened on Tuesday against Watford. It feels like we didn't win, but it felt like a win. It felt like a big moment, which. I get the feeling of that because of, maybe that draw to stop us losing, and maybe if we were to lose, we can maybe go on and lose more games. I kind of get that idea that hopefully can kick us on for the season. So just last question, are we winning the title?
Yes.
Are we getting 100 points?
Yes.
Are we getting to 106 points?
Yes.
Are we going to win each game?
Yeah. We're going to win every game.
There you go. Are we in Europe next year?
Oh, maybe.
Are we in the title 2 years' time? There you go.
Yes.
Yes. Well, to be fair, Alan Pace did say the target was Europe in 5 years. So
was that before we got relegated?
When we got Kompany, but no, when we got Kompany, he said it, didn't he? I think. But
Uh,
yeah, if we got, I mean, it's a possibility. It depends how the
what, Europe
recruitment
next
goes.
year?
Yeah, it's a possibility. It's a
I mean,
possibility.
I guess Fulham. I mean, they're what,
Yeah.
8th right now.
Exactly.
I guess so. I
Exactly.
guess you can't laugh at that too much. I guess Fulham are proving that it is possible.
They're
Actually, they're
decent,
7th right now. Can we do a Fulham next year?
We can do. Recruit
Yes, we
properly. We
can.
can. Yes, we can.
You're asking us the questions. What do you think?
Yeah.
Oh, I think we're winning the league next year.
Oh, good.
Easy.
Good.
Light work.
Good. We're doing a Leicester, are we? We're doing a Leicester.
Yeah, actually, we need a dogfight first, and then we can go perfect. I mean, someone said last week that signing the likes of Zaruri kind of reminds him of something like Riyad Mahrez back in the day. That's like such an unknown talent from someone that no one ever heard of, and then they turn into a world beater. So, yeah, lads, it's been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate both of you coming on. I've had an absolute great time, and hopefully you guys that has been listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts have enjoyed it as well. Thank you all so much for the insane support on the recent podcasts and videos. There'll be a match reaction for the Luton game on Saturday and another podcast on the Monday next week as well. So to Josh, and I go to Josh first. Where can the great people of Burnley find you?
I'm at Josh Nicholson 11 on Twitter. It's usual ramblings about anything that happens.
That's fair enough. Tom, where can people find you?
Just follow me at Tom Kilby.
Isn't it Lord Kilby?
I don't know. It might change. Whichever one.
You're a Lord now, are you?
Kilby. Whichever one you want.
Wow, it's get into his head now. Jesus, Lord Kilby. Yes, Lord_Kilby for people that may want to find any interest, because I'm sure that people will be interested about your insight to the club as well, which I've really enjoyed it. I can't lie. So thank you both for your time and for coming on. And for everyone listening, thank you for being here. Simple as that, really. So up the Clarets, and we'll see you guys next time on Alongside. Thank you very much.